a sneak preview of the jam session, which is about to begin on Tuesday night here. As Jim Nantz would say, it is a tradition unlike any other. You got the Pacers on one side, the Celtics on the other in the Eastern bracket, and then on Wednesday, that would be tomorrow, the Western Conference Finals start with the Mavericks taking on the Timberwolves. That game in Minneapolis. So let us discuss the question. We'll make it a toss-up question. So the toss-up question, conference finals matchup, which one has more juice? You can only pick one. So I've got Mason Jar, Darth Vader, and Buckingham Palace. And we will combine all of these things together, and we will poke you in the eye. If you don't keep your eyes open, we're going to poke your eye right there. All right, so number one. The machine broke. See, everything's breaking. Number one. You can't fix it now. It's just going to hold the rest of the night. All night it's going to be there. All right, so no, stop. All right, so to answer the question, toss-up question, which of these two conference finals has more juice? The arrow is clearly pointing to the West, the Western Front. That is the series that has the razzmatazz here. The Celtics are a sizable favorite. In fact, I saw one gambling house that said this is the biggest favorite we've seen in the conference finals since the Jordan Bulls. That's how massive a favorite the Celtics are. And there's a tremendous gap in talent. Now, the more talented team doesn't always win in sports. We know that. But in basketball, normally that does work out that way. The odds makers have this as one of the great mismatches in NBA conference finals history. So that juice, there is some juice, but it's concentrate. It's not the good juice. It's the concentrate. But the Wolves and the Mavericks, when you break that apart, and you put that under the microscope there, the Wolves and the Mavericks, that's a mason jar filled with wonderfully homemade orange juice with extra pulp. Like Tropicana orange juice with extra, which is not homemade. But when I think orange juice, that's the one that pops into my head. So superstars, you got Luka Doncic on one side, Anthony Ant Edwards on the other. They're bumping heads, so that's good. And neither one of them has been to the NBA Finals before, so one of them will be able to get there unless there's a tie. I don't think there can be a tie. That would be wild if there was a – but wrangling with the power that means if you get to the NBA Finals, the influence, the extra clout that you gain, the more Madison Avenue sucks up to you and wants you to sell overpriced items to the great unwashed in America. Right? The winner will punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. Now, you lose, you're still a loser in the finals, but to just get to the finals, to get over that Humpty Hump, and then you still have to get over another hump. But it is expected, in terms of the matchups in this series, that Anthony Edwards is going to go against Kyrie Irving. He's not going to go mano-a-mano with Luka in this series. So that'll be one matchup. Jaden McDaniels is supposed to match up for Minnesota against Luka Doncic. Now, page 2 here. Which of the finals matchups, the conference finals matchups, assuming we can predict with our ability as a soothsayer to look into the future, a distant relative of Nostradamus, friend of Nostradamus, and we can predict the outcome of the conference finals, which finals matchup by default, which finals matchup would be more attractive for the almighty television? Because this, again, is just a TV show. These are just actors on a TV show. So, this one is also child's play. The matchup that TV wants, and indirectly the NBA wants, because they like to keep their TV partners happy, would be Boston versus Dallas. That's the matchup they want, and that does factor heavily in the eyeballs into the arithmetic. It's all about the eyeballs. Dallas is the number 5 media market in America, and Boston is number 7. So you start out with a bigger base in Boston and in Dallas. Minneapolis is number 15 in terms of media market, and Indianapolis is number 25. So they're down a little bit. But the Celtics and Mavericks, that would just hit a little different, right? That would hit a little different here. And here's why. Not only just the TV stuff, but you could play the Imperial March at the beginning of that series when Dallas, if they were to beat Minnesota, would go into the city of Boston there because that's the Darth Vader soundtrack, and the Darth Vader is Kyrie Irving. He's the heel. Kyrie Irving, former Celtic, and so long ago, I was doing local fill-in stuff in Boston when Kyrie Irving told Celtics season ticket holders that he was going to stay with the Celtics, only to then have a meeting in the hallway at the All-Star game, if I remember correctly, with Kevin Durant, and they orchestrated a super team with the Brooklyn Nets. Didn't work out so well. Anyway, but listen, the point is Kyrie Irving is the bad guy. You need a good guy, you need a bad guy, and from a fan perspective in Boston, he is despised. Now, the ironic part of that is that there's this odd dichotomy because you have Jaylen Brown, who worships Kyrie. He's like a Kyrie Irving fanboy, and a lot of the Celtics, there's a few of those guys that were still were there when Kyrie was in Boston. They're still hanging around, and they all love Kyrie, at least publicly. So that's an interesting footnote. And Boston has had a no-sweat playoff schedule so far. Like, you know, we do commercials for DraftKings. It's like a no-sweat bet. You get your money back. The Celtics have done a lot of that. Like, they've done a lot of that in the playoffs. In fact, just to touch up my work here, through 10 playoff games, the team that wears the green, the Celtics, have played how many seconds of clutch time? How about 79 seconds? Less than a minute 20 of clutch time. That's where the score on that giant jumbotron is within 5 points in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. They played 79 seconds. That's it. 9 of the 10 games have been decided by double digits, including both games that they lost on their playoff run. All right, final point. So let's take a wide-angle look at the Final Four of the NBA, which, again, begins tonight. Be checking that out so you don't have to. Don't worry, we'll watch. So what do you make of the Mavs, the Wolves, the Celtics, and the Pacers all getting to the conference finals? So you've got Luka, Ant Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, and Jason Tatum, the headliners on that. So at first glance, it appears to be a large anomaly. This was the thing that wasn't supposed to happen at the time it wasn't supposed to happen. However, I'm looking at it differently. I'm going to be Benny Brightside on this. And what I believe has happened here is the changing of the guard, like our friend Bernie, who's walking around London there. And I imagine he'll go over to Buckingham Palace at some point, because when you go to London as an American, you got to go to Buckingham Palace. It's required, or they don't allow you to come back to the States. So he's going to go to Buckingham Palace, and they'll have the changing of the guard. And it's out with the old, in with the new, and we're seeing that in the NBA. LeBron James is 39. He's more worried about his podcasting than he is the Lakers. Steph Curry is 36. I don't even know what he's worried about, but the Warriors are toast. They're not going to win again. Kevin Durant, that was a hot mess in the Valley of the Sun, but that's the old guard. Those are the guys that have been around, and they've been hanging out for a long time, but now you got the new guys. Now, that does not mean that we are going to regularly see Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers in the conference finals, or even Ant Edwards, but there's another wave, right? There's another wave of guys behind them that are intermingling, and so the next couple of years, changing of the guard, we'll find out. But it's the circle of life in the NBA. The eras, they don't normally blend together. There's normally like an odd transition. And Jordan left, people were like searching for the next Michael Jordan, and then went Kobe, but people were not all in on Kobe for a while. Then they became all in with Kobe, and there's a transitional period.